Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Sri Surendra Mehta and the team and colleagues at IBJA, thank you very much for the invitation to speak to you tonight. I'm going to be talking about a development, in particular it's the opening of our office in Dubai covering the Middle East, and I'm going to be setting out some of the reasons we've done that, the role of the Middle East and the UAE in particular in terms of the global gold market and some of our plans there for the future. So first of all, just a bit of context to build on what we just heard about gold demand. And if you look at the Middle East, it's now the third largest consumer market in the world after China and India. Traditionally, it's been a large jewelry market, but what's really interesting now is that it's bar and coin demand, the investment demand for gold, which has been growing quite significantly across all of the major markets in the Middle East. And in fact, the only market, ironically, that was down slightly last year was the UAE. That was, as we'd heard earlier, about the price impact of jewelry on jewelry demand, and because of very high local gold prices in the UAE, we did see a bit of a decline in jewelry demand in the UAE. But across the board, the Middle East is certainly very healthy from a consumer demand perspective. But looking at the UAE as a whole, and its role in the global market, it's really more about being a domestic consumption center. It's a global gatekeeper. It's the third largest importer of gold in the world after Switzerland and China, and it's the fourth biggest exporter of gold after Switzerland, the UK, and the US. And its supply of gold and its the export destinations, they're global, in particular the export destinations which are listed here in terms of value, trade value. But that really is why we're here, because a significant proportion, 1,000 tons every year of gold flows through the UAE. It's a major gatekeeper, and one of our big drivers, the big focus at the World Gold Council is global market integrity, and we feel that it's very important to engage with all markets, especially when they play such a significant role in terms of the international flows of gold. So that's why we're there, but there are also a number of other changes as well that have led us to look at the UAE market, and I'm just going to talk about initially about some of the regulatory policy changes that have taken place. But the regulatory landscape in the UAE has evolved quite significantly over the last few years. And there are a couple of trends that I would highlight, or a couple of factors that I would highlight. First of all, regulation of the market is now at the national level, at the Emirates-wide level. Previously, different Emirates, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Sharjah, and so on, had their own different regimes. That's now changed. A new committee formed under the Federal Ministry of Economy, called the Emirates Bullion Committee, has taken charge of the regulation of the industry, and it's applied at an Emirates-wide level. And that's also reflected in terms of good delivery. So we no longer have Dubai Good Delivery, which was Dubai-focused and managed by a committee of industry peers. We now have UAE Good Delivery, which is Emirates-wide, but it's also overseen at a statutory level by government ministries rather than by the industry itself. A couple of other changes, and there's a significant amount of interest in the UAE market now for two reasons, what I call a carrot and a stick. The stick was the FATF, and the UAE being on the FATF watch list. They've recently come off of the grey list, and that's certainly given financial institutions in particular more comfort in dealing in the market there. But the carrot, which has been a major driver, has been CEPA with India, and that has really changed the commercial realities, the commercial dynamics, the commercial opportunities of participating in the bullion industry in the UAE. And we're certainly seeing a lot of renewed interest from financial institutions in particular about doing business in the UAE. And we certainly welcome that as financial institutions, banks, as regulated, as trusted entities can help with the process of formalization. So just finally on the regulatory landscape, I mentioned good delivery. That's just one side of the responsible sourcing coin. One other major change is that responsible sourcing rules are now mandatory for all refiners operating onshore in the UAE. So if you're a refiner or a smelter operating onshore in the UAE, there are mandatory responsible sourcing rules. That took effect at the beginning of last year, and those first audits, and it's an annual audit process, those first audits are starting to come back now, but it's mandatory, it's not voluntary. All onshore refiners have to comply, and that's overseen, as I said, by the Emirates Bullion Committee, which draws in different government institutions, the Dubai Economy Department, the UAE Federal Ministry of Economy, the Federal Ministry of Trade, the Emirates Standardization Authority, and so on. But led on top of that, you have UAE Good Delivery, which, in addition to the mandatory responsible sourcing rules, there are various different, similar to the LBMA Good Delivery list, different technical and financial requirements that are applied, but that's voluntary. And at the moment, as we know, there are two UAE Good Delivery refiners, and they can export to India and take advantage of the duty differential through SEPA. So those are some of the overarching changes in terms of the regulatory landscape. I'm just going to talk a little bit about our vision, which sort of lays the foundation and provides the context to our activities and our work program, and then I'll talk more specifically about our work program. Our vision, which is called the 247 vision, is really a result of the global consumer market research that we undertake, that my colleague Lou, who spoke just before me, leads for us. And we interview on a regular basis thousands of consumers in key gold markets around the world. And when we talk to a specific subset of those consumers, what we'd call considerers, so individuals who are considering making a gold investment, are open to buying gold, but haven't yet done so within at least the last 12 months. We found that there were actually, across all markets, there were two major barriers that were holding back those considerers from making an allocation to gold. And the first was a lack of ease in terms of purchase and a lack of knowledge and understanding of gold as an asset class, and that's our bread and butter. We have a global research program, an institutional relationships team led by Claire, who's also here, who are constantly making the case for gold and helping increase understanding of gold. But the second point was that almost half of those considerers cited a lack of trust in gold as an asset class, in the counterparties they were dealing with, that was holding them back from making that first purchase of gold. And we've addressed that in a number of ways. We talked in the inaugural session about the SRO, and we had a little video on the retail gold investment principles. That's just one piece, that's just one cog in our program of trying to improve market integrity and thereby improve trust and ultimately increase demand for gold, because we can overcome that lack of trust as a barrier. But Gold 247, which is underpinned by digitalization, is an initiative that will enhance trust, because our ultimate aim is that there will be a digital representation of physical gold across the supply chain. We'll be leveraging the latest of technologies, and we had a speaker in the first session from MMTC PAMP who was talking about the need for the industry as a whole to enhance and increase its adoption of the latest technologies. A lot of that is to do with digitalization and blockchain and so on, but we're looking at how we can deploy these technologies to give consumers, to give market participants, to give the banks and other counterparties the confidence that the gold that they are buying, that they are consuming, that they are trading, has been responsibly produced, it's been responsibly processed, it's been responsibly traded, and then it's been responsibly consumed. So that's underpinning our global work program. And in the UAE, we have a number of different initiatives to support those global market integrity initiatives. So the first of all, building on our global work to increase standards in the industry, we'll be running a training program. We'll be partnering with the DMCC. We'll be doing this. The first one will be taking place in September this year, but it'll be a regular training program for the gold industry, not just in the UAE, but in the region as a whole. We ran it recently in Turkey at Bursa, Istanbul, and we'll be running it in a couple of weeks in Cairo, in Egypt. The second component of the work program is engagement with the banks, because the banks are the vectors for formalizing the industry. being on the FATF watch list was a major barrier to banks getting more involved in the bullion industry. That barrier has now come down, and as regulated, as trusted, as well-known institutions, banks can help formalize the industry as a whole. So we are working with banks at an individual level to encourage greater participation across the supply chain. So not just in terms of offering gold products, but in terms of providing financing to the industry, in terms of sourcing, in terms of providing custody services, and so on. We'll be deploying the RGIPs, the Retail Gold Investment Principles, and work has already commenced on that, and there are huge links with this market, as we know. So many of the institutions that are involved in the RGIPs here in India will be involved with the RGIPs in the UAE. We'll also be conducting a regular program of research, of consumer market research, to better understand perceptions of gold, buying behavior, the UAE's role in the global gold retail market, and we'll be reaching out to institutional investors, which is a major proposition of the UAE as a significant wealth management center, not just for individuals, but for institutions as well. And I'm just going to finish on one initiative in particular, which really is global in terms of its application. It's not just UAE specific, but that's hand-carried gold, because it's hand-carried gold that can be used to bypass responsible sourcing rules, fiscal rules, other licensing and regulatory requirements. And what we'd like to see is greater global consistency in terms of the rules around hand carry and the application of those rules. So that could be anything from agreement internationally on what are acceptable personal limits by HS code, by form of gold. If those personal limits are exceeded, what's the procedure? Should there be a licensing regime, for example? Should there be pre-approvals or a proof of purchase in advance of that hand carry? We'll also be working with customs officials globally to help with product identification, to increase awareness of the security features that come with gold bars and coins, and provide education on hallmarking and the jewelry trade. And it's our hope that in doing so, we will be able to at least not ban hand carry. There's a perfectly legitimate role for a lot of hand carried gold, but create an internationally consistent and robust regime that means that hand carry can't be abused as it sometimes is. But this is a huge undertaking, which you recognize, and stage one will be industry engagement, and we'll be working with industry, not just in the UAE, but globally, to come to a consensus on what those personal limits and what those regimes and processes around hand carry would look like, and we'll be convening the first industry group later this year, and there will be international engagement, including here and in other markets, and we'd certainly love to start a dialogue on this. So I look forward to perhaps continuing some of those discussions at the rest of the summit as it progresses over tonight and tomorrow. So that's a very sort of quick overview of why we're in the Middle East, why we've set it up in Dubai, and our plans for the future. I'd just like to thank again IBJA for the invitation to present and the opportunity to convene as a group over the next couple of days to discuss the bullion industry in what is really the most significant gold market in the world, India. So thank you very much for this.